And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, May 23rd, 2020. How's everybody doing?
Good evening.
Good, thank you.
And well,
Absolutely fantastic.
Excellent.
We are live.
We are live, but it's not showing.
We are live. I don't know why it's not. I don't know why it wouldn't be showing, but
I had to
There
refresh
it is.
actually to see it.
it's showing.
okay.
It's showing now.
We're good.
So, this week we are trying out Xubuntu, and for the last couple of weeks we've been trying to come up with a name for what we've been doing because, like, we had talked about not having the distro challenge anymore, and so I haven't come up with a name yet. And then I was talking to Yusef, and he is all over the place in the open source community helping out, and he just mentioned, why don't you just say it's distro talk? So. I mean, unless anybody has a better name than that, that's what we're going with. So our distro talk this week is Ubuntu 2004. So there you go. In the second hour, we're supposed to be joined by Rick Timmis to give us a Kubuntu Focus update. But this hour, we're going to check out everybody's thoughts on Ubuntu 2004. So Dan, what do you think?
I think it's awesome. I think one of the best things that could have happened, and that is Graybird Dark. So I love it. I think it's great, and I think that theme looks really wonderful. People griped about Graybird for the longest time, saying that there needed to be something else, and I think this completes it really. And I don't know. It's Ubuntu, so it's pretty great. It's obviously
We're a little partial though, right?
a little bit, yeah. Maybe I like Ubuntu things, so that's cool.
Well, I don't want to be rude because we also have Sean Davis here, right? Sean, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We are doing excellent, brother. It's been a while since we talked to you last, but I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks. Good to be here.
All right, so I did install Xubuntu 2004, and the install went perfect. I had no issues with it. I do have one issue right now that it's locking my screen and not staying open. But besides that, all in all, it is a great distro. It's a great release. It comes with pretty much every piece of software that you need to run on Linux. It's not going to have every piece of software out there, but it's not designed to have every piece of software out there. When I say it has every piece of software you need, that's what I mean. Anything that you need to do, you can do on it. It has that paradigm that most people are going to be comfortable with. And for those, I am not that user, but for those users, it is a great thing to be able to have that distro that they can install and be comfortable with. Now, like high DPI is kind of a mixed bag type thing for me, because it does have a high DPI setting now, and you can turn that on. You don't have to log out, like in other desktop environments to take effect. But you do have to make some extra adjustments, like the title bars. So the title bars are really tiny yet. So then you have to go into the window manager, I believe it is, and change the title bars. On a side note, the title bars that you can remove and change the close and minimize and change them around, put them anywhere you want to. Excellent. Still can do that in this DE where most other DEs you can't, maybe KDE. Other than that, you may be able to switch things to the left or right, but you can't like customize it, put this one over here and that one over there. So going on with the high DPI, the mouse cursors don't really honor the high DPI. They are really tiny yet. And I guess that's about it. But like I said, most of all, you're able to, so I went in and I fiddled with the title bars. I changed the font on it so that it was really big, to match the other parts of the screen, which is great. Only leftover factor is that mouse cursor. Other than that, I love the sound applet, and I believe, Sean, you had work in that. You were the one that created that, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's the first thing that you guys reached out to me about, or like you talked about it on a Destination Linux, and then I came and talked to you guys shortly after that.
Yep. Well, it is awesome to be able to go up just to the sound thing, because maybe other people don't have this issue, but I have this issue because I have probably 5 sound outputs that are possible because of the monitors with the speakers and all these other things. To be able to go up and change it in like 2 clicks, drop down, click it, and change it is awesome. So awesome work. But let's open it up to whoever else wants to talk about Ubuntu, and you guys stick your hands up whenever you want to, but let's start with Computer Kid. Go ahead.
So this probably isn't too much of an opinion because I spent maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes on it with the live CD, but a few things I noticed is that I had a little bit of trouble with multi-monitors. I went to the installer, and what happened was the windows were automatically not on my primary monitor, so I hit the Meta plus P to open up that menu, and it didn't give me an option to extend to the left like I wanted to. And so I just chose to disable that monitor because I prefer to have it on my main screen, and because the other screen isn't very high res. And so got it on that screen, but then the windows got caught between the screens, and I almost lost the install window. And so I ended up managing to drag them back in, but I went to the live CD, and then I made sure I set the primary screen to my laptop screen, and still the like desktop stuff and the dock remained on the non-primary screen. So I don't know what was up with that. That was the main thing I noticed. I liked that the Wi-Fi support was good. It asked for my password when I put it in wrong, and the window snapping was good. That's about it. And also I noticed that the Windows key for some reason didn't open the menu, which was a bit of a surprise. But those were my main things.
All right. Sean, just so you know, you can jump in at any time you want to as we go along.
Cool. Yeah, multi-monitor support has always kind of been not particularly great with XFCE. There's been a lot of work that's gone into it in recent years, but I think most of the developers, including myself, are still like all single monitor people, so we don't do a lot of testing with it until we have that bug report and we build a fix, and then we stop using multi-monitor again. But yeah, I will relay that to the person that manages that area, and hopefully we can get a fix for that.
Nice.
I think with the start menu issue, I think I did see that once. But I think I was testing it on a Mac, and testing Linux on Mac is pretty crazy. I'll try to find the bug on Launchpad, and I'll let you know if I find it in the chat.
Yeah, and with the meta key to open up the Windows or the applications menu, that is like a known thing, but we are looking to address that with the next release, because I think people have been asking for that for a long time.
So, you know, doing a live stream, there's all kinds of things going on, and, you know, you forget certain things. And I just got like a few reminders in the YouTube chat, and I also got a text message to put on the sign. So there you go. We're officially open for business.
You're
All right.
Can't believe you had me talk while you weren't open for business.
Right? I know. That's ridiculous. All right. Moving on. Who wants to go next? Thomas, you're the first person I see. Shoot.
Okay. So first off, I believe I'm a little bit biased towards XFCE. So, you know, that's a thing. But so I've been using Xubuntu since 1804, and I just upgraded along the way. So I didn't do a fresh reinstall. I just upgraded to 2004. Overall, really, really nice. I have a multi-monitor setup, and my layout, my XFCE profile, I designed it specifically to be able to dynamically handle that, and it's perfectly fine. It's pretty similar to GNOME, so I can get used to it pretty easily, and it works pretty well. So I haven't had any issues. I'm not a Graybird fan, so I haven't tried it yet. Other than that, the one issue that I really had was when I went to lock my computer, it would show one light DM theme. If I let it time out and suspend my computer, and then I brought it out of suspend, then it had a different light DM theme. Now I was able to fix that because there was a tutorial that went up somewhere about how to change the command it uses to lock the screen, and I think that fixed it. Other than that, since I developed a distro that has XFCE, I found there's a file in the configuration where whenever it sees a new screen, it adds a new entry to XFCE for desktop.xml, and it defaults to a specific wallpaper. And whenever you plug in a new screen, it doesn't default to whatever the wallpaper is set for every other screen and every other workspace. It defaults to whatever the XFCE default is set to. And I went in and tried to change that to what I wanted it to be, and it's still defaulting to what the XFCE default is. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if that's hard-coded in. I found the default file, and I set it to what I want it to be, but it's not defaulting to that. So I don't know what's going on there. But otherwise, I really, really like it. I like that I can set up a specific XFCE profile and then share it with others. I don't know a lot of people that use this feature, but I think it's something that could actually be taken advantage of a lot more. Because, let's say you have a setup like mine that's good for multi-monitor support, and you have somebody like Computer Kid who has multi-monitor but is having issues with it. I might be able to share my profile with him and see if it helps him out. And I don't hear a lot of people sharing their XFCE profiles. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to check out a lot more, because it's great for backing up your profiles in case you want to make sure that you don't get something wrong. Or if you see a profile that somebody has and you want to try it out, you can just ask them for the profile and they can share it with you. And you can replicate other DE layouts. I think Plasma might have something similar, but I've never seen it, and I've never seen it in use. So the fact that XFCE has it, and I have seen people use it once or twice, is great, and I think it needs to be used more. It sucks that they changed the name of it because it kind of confuses me, but it is awesome.
Website for that, sharing profiles.
I think there might be a website, but I don't know what the URL is right now. I'll check that out and put it in the Zoom chat later. But yeah, great release. I think it would be good. I think the themes that are included in Xubuntu by default are Graybird and Adwaita, which is fine because Adwaita Dark is terrific. I tried the Yaru theme, and I know XFCE is supposed to be fully GTK3 now. And I noticed that in places, the Yaru theme was the old orange and black or orange and gray, because I was using Yaru Dark. And in other places, it was the new purple and black or purple and gray. And I think that was due to parts of XFCE being GTK2 still. And I don't know if that was specifically my system or what, because I was seeing it with like Whisker Menu and a couple other things here and there. So I think that might need to be looked at. It is not like it is like a huge issue, but I think it does need to be looked at. But yeah, overall, fantastic, lightweight. And, if you want something that's super, super configurable and GTK based, definitely give it a shot. And yeah, awesomeness. Keep it up.
Thanks. A lot to unpack there, but if you like Adwaita Dark, you should definitely check out Greybird Dark. I know you said you didn't care for Greybird before, but Greybird Dark is very different, and lots of people have reported that they pretty much love it now. So, as for sharing like the panel profiles, I don't think we have a website for that currently, but we totally should. It's an underused feature that we added recently and works pretty well. And yeah, I forgot everything else, but I'm an end listener. I apologize.
Yeah.
But
one of the things you mentioned was with the, I noticed it as well. When you log in, if you set your greeter setting, like I'm on a 4K monitor,
Mhm.
it doesn't respect it at all on the initial login. However, once I'm in, and if I lock my screen, I go out, looks great. It's the right size, the right everything. It's only on the login.
See, I didn't have that specific issue. For me, it was the opposite. When I initially logged in, it had the right light DM theme. If I manually locked it with Control L, it had the right light DM theme. It's when I suspended and came out of suspend that it didn't have that. And
stop doing that.
Well, I like to use suspend every once in a while because I have a laptop. I should use suspend. I can do that. And the workaround on how to set the lock command was actually great for me specifically because I actually have a script that runs the lock command I want anyway. And it also throws up a notification on the desktop for me to know that my system is locking because I use KDE Connect. So if I give it the command to lock remotely, I get a notification that, hey, your system is actually locked, which is fantastic. Or if it just locks on its own, now it's going to use that command so I know, hey, my system's locked. I'm not around it. I have peace of mind that my system is locked. Nobody's going to be messing with my stuff because as a developer, I have a lot of software in my system. I don't want people tampering with that without my knowledge. So.
Good news, I can explain the different lock screens. Since you are an upgrader from previous releases, in 1910 and 2004, we introduced the XFCE screensaver. So probably you still have Light Locker installed, and that's probably running in your background, listening for like the suspend event and saying, all right, send you to the greeter instead of send you to the standard lock screen.
Okay, I'll check that out real quick.
All right. Thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Sean. Let's see. Daniel Stevenson, you're new here to Biddle, so I want to say welcome. And I see you have your hand up, so go ahead and give us what you think about Xubuntu.
All right. Yeah, glad to be here. Xubuntu 2004 it was a good experience overall. There were, I actually had to, I attempted installing it 5 times because I just have kind of a weird disk partitioning layout where I have a small SSD that I keep my main Tumbleweed install on. And then I have a giant hybrid drive that I split between games and like a distro hopping thing. And then like the Windows install that came on the laptop that I just don't want to lose the license for. And so setting up like in a custom location and with full disk encryption, including the boot partition, because Grub lets you do that now, and all that, it was... I eventually found a tutorial, but when I was trying to figure out on my own, it was kind of finicky. And I really ran up against some limitations in the partitioner that's built into Ubiquity. So eventually what you have to do is like partition it manually beforehand, like you would if you were installing like Arch or Slackware or something. And then do the installation, pick your partitions, and then like run this other command after it starts running, after it starts the install. And I used Greybird Dark, which is actually great. I love Greybird Dark. I did spend a little bit of time though hunting for once I switched to dark, I noticed that all of my title bars and things were very shiny because you additionally have to go into the window manager settings and change the window manager's theme to Graybird Dark. So that wasn't too difficult to find, but it was confusing me for a little while. But yeah.
Daniel, can I ask you a question about your laptop? How old is it?
It's like 2 years old, actually.
Okay, you don't have to worry about losing your license because the key is embedded in the BIOS. So if you were to wipe that and put it back on, Windows would automatically recognize that and reactivate.
Yeah, I found out about that after I had booted into it. So now I can't transfer it to like a VM or something, unfortunately.
Right.
Like I'd was waiting for the part for the other hard drive to come because it only came with the SSD. And so I logged into the Windows and like set that up, and now it's locked to that, unfortunately.
It should have been by manufacturer automatically. So no matter what you did, it should have been embedded into UEFI. So
well, Jack Wallen has a tutorial up on Tech Republic where if you wipe it without booting the laptop, you can use this tool in Linux to extract the key, and then you can put that, if you install Windows in a VM or something, you can put that in there and it will work. It will show up as a licensed copy of Windows.
technically it's against license, but okay.
Since the I can send the link in chat or something.
Do you have it linked to your, or do you have a, heaven forbid, no one throw anything at me. Do you have a Microsoft account that you log in with?
I don't even use the Windows.
Okay, never mind.
It's just there.
I was just going to say,
remember.
I just went through that. I do have to interact with Windows, so I have the account. And what's cool about that, at least, is I can log in, go to activate any Windows on a VM or anywhere, and it'll show me every one that I have, and I can just go, oh yeah, that's it, and I click it, and it activates, and it's done. But yeah, you gotta offer a pound of flesh first. But it is a kind of a neat thing they have.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for that, Daniel. And glad you're here. Let's see. Moving down the list, Dave Jones. Good evening. And how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Not bad. So,
Got it.
there it is.
There it is.
Nice.
I have to say that Xubuntu is actually it's one of my favorite distros that I've checked out so far, and it's always been one of my favorite ones. Generally, a lot of the computers that I have at work are older PCs, and whenever I get a chance and I'm able to get Windows off of them and put on Linux, it's generally Xubuntu because of how easy it is to get set up, get it installed, and how light it is. And so I could take a 5-year-old PC that's struggling really bad with Windows and just give it new life. And it's wonderful. And with XFCE, I love the how customizable it is, just how modular. You can adjust pretty much everything. I find it's very similar to like KDE without the difficulties and that aspect, because you can do so many things with it. My only real complaints with it is that, especially with the old Graybird theme, it would look kind of plain and not the most modern of distros, but it's really easy. You take 10 minutes and you can make it look as fancy and flashy as any other distro that's out there on it. The only real complaint I would have right now is the fact that it's still a little bit difficult to adjust the size of a window. I don't think it has like the invisible borders around it. So if you want to adjust the size, and I'm always forgetting there is a keyboard shortcut where it's like Alt F8 or something like that you can just click and you can adjust the size of the window. But since I always forget it, I'm finding myself trying to get the exact spot in the corner. But overall, I love it. I think it's great.
That's great. So some news for that. The next release of XFCE will have the somewhat beloved, somewhat hated client-side decorations that we see in like GNOME Shell. And that will automatically give us the nice invisible window grab areas pretty much across the
Yay.
board. So you can look forward to that.
That's great. And to answer like a couple of other people's, and I think it was Computer Kid about with the Windows key, network. And I know with Xubuntu, it's for the whisker menu, it comes by default. It's Control Escape, and you just go into the menu options, and you can easily change it so it's the super key, and then it works. It's always worked for me when you do that.
Okay.
Very nice, Dave. Very nice. All right. Jinda, you've been waiting for a while. Tell us about your experience with Ubuntu.
I installed it and it took like 10 minutes. Booted up my computer. I put, I think it was Strawberry or Clementine in it for a music player. And I actually played with it for most of the week. The only thing I noticed, for some strange reason, it kept on saying sticky keys in the corner. That was the only thing that I could say that seemed kind of odd. Does anybody know what sticky keys are?
So
You press shift 5 times?
it's an accessibility feature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it just keep popping up every once in a while at random. It seemed like I didn't know what it was. But other than that, that's the only, I mean, literally, that's the only thing that I could say. I also installed a clipboard manager. That was it. I mean, I played with it most of the week and I loved it. And sticky keys kept coming up and I go, how can I make that go away? And I couldn't figure it out. And I just said, well, it can be there.
All right. Very nice. Shickle.
Hi there. Is everybody using BSD today?
No,
we're
not.
Sorry. That's a shame.
Almost.
So I did get to play with Xubuntu, and actually Xubuntu was the first Linux distribution I've ever used. And it's come a long way. I think the transition to GTK3 definitely helps a ton. Graybird Dark is beautiful. It definitely does remind me of Adwaita Dark in a lot of ways, which is good because I like Adwaita Dark. And I know people are all into the dark themes. I'm not, because I'm weird like that, but it was a really, really beautiful one. I'm glad to see that they have that in there. What I really liked about Xubuntu was just that by default, it has a very, like that with the top bar kind of thing that I tend to like. Like I remember when I first came into Linux, seeing that was like, oh, this is cool. You could put things in other places. Not that you couldn't on Windows or Mac. I just never knew that you could. But XFCE made it so easy to do. And I think Xubuntu strikes a nice balance between making XFCE approachable and user-friendly and not like oversimplifying things. So the whole sort of like notifications area and the do not disturb features I thought were really great. And all of that's new since the last LTS, as far as I know. So that was super nice to see because I take advantage of do not disturb and notification trays like all the time. So it's really great to have that bundled in there. That I think is probably one of the most useful features I've had about it. And other than that, as somebody with a bunch of high DPI monitors as well, greatly appreciated that scaling is much, much nicer than it was in previous releases. So for me, that's a huge bonus. So all in all, I mean, it ran on pretty much everything I threw it at. So yeah, fantastic release.
Nice. Thanks, Trickle. Let's see. Moving down the list. Colin, good evening, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Hope everyone else is well.
Yes. What do you think of Xubuntu?
Yes, Xubuntu, very, very stable. It's running as you would probably expect Xubuntu to run. Just got a couple of questions on. You've got it in the file manager, the view and the location select the path bar style and toolbar style. I noticed that's in 1804, or was that put in the .4 release, or was that there before? I thought that was new.
So the path bar thing kind of existed previously, but it was not nearly as good. And it was a
Right.
lot harder to like switch between modes. So like now you can just kind of click in that negative space and you get a location bar. Before it was
Yes.
you pick one or the other.
Okay, that seems to work pretty well anyway, so that's good. I notice you've got client-side decorations as an option in the Catfish file search, so that already looks like it's already started to happen. So, and that seems to work very well as well. The other thing you've got is I've noticed 2 software centers. Is that on purpose or because they both seem to react the same? There seems to be the Snap Store and the software, the Ubuntu software.
Right. Yeah. So apparently sometime late in the development cycle, they made it to where when you upgrade the software center, it also installs the Snap Store, which the software center already did. So not really ideal for us. And we didn't get a whole lot of notification about it.
Okay.
So hopefully that will be cleaned up for the next release.
Yeah, I was trying both. I thought, oh, maybe this one's different to the other one, and this might have just the Ubuntu repos and whatever. But then they all look the same, so I thought, yeah, it was probably just worth asking that question. But besides that, I tried the Quokka theme because that's my favourite theme going at the moment, and that seems to look okay. Although I don't have a real good eye for those sorts of things, and I'm not a real fussy person, but it looks good to me anyway. So GTK3 seems to be working fine, but I suppose you're gonna get different reactions from different themes anyway. So, but looks good to me. It runs well, and I think it's an awesome release. So yeah, job well done.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Colin. Tony, I see you got your hand up, and good evening.
Good evening. I'm not sure I should give my view really, because I've got only one positive thing to say about it, and that is I love the dark Greybird theme. But I don't know why, but for some reason I had 1 or 2 issues on the laptop. So I decided to wipe the main machine and install it on there to give it a fair go. And I had loads of issues on there with it. I'd set dark themes up and done 1 or 2 other bits and pieces. And then all of a sudden it seemed to glitch and the theme went from dark to white. When I went back in to try and alter it, it locked up. When it freed up, I clicked on it to try and alter it back to the dark, and it wasn't going to have that. It stuck on white. So I rebooted and came back up, and the dark theme came back up. And then it was telling me that I hadn't got an internet connection. And I thought, well, I'm using Ethernet on this machine, so it must have an internet connection. It actually wasn't connected. It would not see the Ethernet connection. And I can't recall the last time I had that problem on any distro. There was just too many problems. So I'm afraid I did what I usually do when I get fed up with it. I just nuked it, and that was it. It was gone. Why? I don't know, but that's what happened.
Tony, do you think there's a chance you might have got a bad distro, a bad download?
Well, it checks the disk for you when you install, doesn't it?
I realize that, but and the only reason I'm saying that is when, and granted, this was before they did the LTS, but if you remember right, I talked to Alan Pope, I think when we were on the show here with Ubuntu itself, I was having an issue with it on my workstation with some glitching with graphics and stuff like that. And I said, before I blame the distro itself, or with being or file a bug, I would try a reinstall, re-download, whatever. And that fixed it. I had no problem after that. So I'm just curious, because even though it checks it, I still believe that there's a chance you could wind up with a bad install. I'd just be curious to see if you gave it another shot with a fresh install or download again, just to see.
It's
I'm
possible.
just throwing that out there as a thought.
Yeah, all right. I'll do another download, and I'll give it another try, because I was surprised. I didn't expect to have that many issues with it, I must admit.
I've gotten a bad install from a corrupted Slackware ISO in the past. It can happen.
Yeah, and it only takes 1 bit to get out of place, and
Yeah, that could have messed the system up. So yeah,
it will.
It could
Tony,
be
I
an
ran
internet
into a
drop off
similar-
too, when it's downloading, where all of a sudden it just hiccups just enough and you may not even realize it.
Yep.
Ran into a
Not a
similar
Broadcom issue, is it?
Ethernet issue this past week. First time ever. but it was with POP, but it was also on the 2004. The Ethernet did not show up. I happened to have a wireless card in that PC. It showed up. So I was able to update over the wireless card, and then the Ethernet worked after the update. But I have never had this is just a like a MSI motherboard, like just a standard Ethernet always works. So there could be something in the 2004 that's maybe they're working through issue wise, because I even had it on a different distro.
I've had it on other 2004. I've never had it on any of the other of the 2004s. I've tried probably most of them.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll give it another go.
Sounds
to be
good.
fair.
That's fair.
Sorry, everybody's concentrating on Scrap Jill's video right now, and everybody's waving.
As we should. As we should.
All right. We're going to continue on. Hey, I do have a question from chat, Sean, about the minimal install option, if that's going to come into play at some point.
So we've kind of tossed that one back and forth. So we actually have another edition of Xubuntu called Xubuntu Core, which, you lose the benefit of all your options are on the same installation disk. But you get the benefit of, if you want that customizable system, this is a much smaller download. It's going to be a much cleaner install, requiring less space to get going, and less packages have to be removed when it's finishing the install. So I recommend looking at the Xubuntu Core option.
Nice. All right. Leo, you got your hand up, brother. Long time no see.
I know I had to miss a couple shows. I'm glad to be back. If you'll let me, since I think I might be the last one with a hand up, my thoughts on Kubuntu as well, maybe.
After Xubuntu, you're more than welcome to talk about
absolutely.
Kubuntu.
Okay, yeah. I felt so robbed the last time. I couldn't defend my beloved Kubuntu.
Okay.
So
we were very hard on it. I'm sorry.
I'm telling you, man, it was brutal. I was just there in the YouTube chat, and I was like, "Oh no, please stop! He's dead already."
We weren't trying to be hard. We really weren't. We weren't trying to be hard on it. But anyway, go ahead.
Not. It was all in good fun. Anyway, Xubuntu, right? It's what you'd expect, right? I mean, it's Ubuntu with all of the awesome that comes with that, with Graybird on top. So I wanted to try out the dark theme on Graybird, and it seems like it's just me. So I think I got really lucky on this. So when I go into Appearance and click on Graybird Dark, the font color doesn't change. It's still gray. So it looks, you can't read it. You can read it by the shadow that's behind it. So I think that's just me, because when I go to the website and look on the screenshot for it, the font is white. It's white and flat. So I don't know what I ran into for that to happen. And also I don't know how to explain this, but it's when you look at the theme, the gradient makes it look like it's coming out at you. And on the screenshot on the website, the gradient makes it look like it's kind of recessed inward instead. So something's up with my particular theme, because nobody else brought this up. So I feel like I'm the only one.
You're the only one.
I think you have the same issue that I did, where you also have to change the window manager to Graybird Dark.
Oh, how do you do
and that will make your title bars not shiny, and it will change their fonts to white.
That's
you go
the
to the window
one.
manager. Yeah, window manager.
Hold on.
Right
Okay,
in
let's do this live. Hang on.
Right in the menu right there. And
there are two different places to change the theme to get it right.
Oh,
yes.
there it is, window manager.
Yeah.
Oh.
I am hoping to improve that soon.
Sure enough, there it goes. Okay. All right. Well, seriously, that was the only con I had on the entire thing, and now it looks perfect.
Look at that, we fixed it live.
Yeah, see, it works. So yeah, now at this point, I don't have anything bad to say about Xubuntu. Everything worked out of the box on my Lenovo T450S. My audio interfaces worked. I mean, this is all just Ubuntu underneath, so I mean, I'm not really speaking to Xubuntu here, but everything was fantastic. I'm coming from Cinnamon, where you get a little bit of eye candy, and been hanging out on Kubuntu a little bit, so there's a lot of eye candy there. That's the only thing that I don't get that I would like, but it doesn't really detract from the operating system. The thing is rock solid. So yeah. Fantastic work. All
right, Sean, you want to explain what you were talking about? You're trying to work on that?
Yeah. So we're working on XFCE 4.16 now, which will not take, what was it, 5 years between releases.
We're
So
hoping
5 years.
We're hoping not.
we're hoping to land that either this year or sometime early next year. Hopefully this year. So one of the things I'm working on next is kind of consolidating the theme managers to be kind of more, similar to what you'd see back in GNOME 2 or Mate, where you kind of choose an overall theme and you can go in and customize it. Select, the distinct parts if you want.
Now, is that very difficult because of, themes are set to be where they are now? Or, is that a lot to overcome?
Perhaps. It's one of those things where it seems like it should be fairly easy on paper. But, it's working with two different systems at the same time. And then, with XFCE being modular, you can use the window manager somewhere else. You can use everything else somewhere else. So it's like you have to kind of account for that and make sure you don't break it for anybody that's using it, for i3 and whatnot. So
how hard could it be, right?
Right. I'm sure it'll be a piece of cake. I'll have it next week.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to get in on Xubuntu 2004? What do you got, Thomas?
I'm trying to remember because I feel like I missed something, but I'm not sure. Oh, now I remember. Okay. So this is a bug that I encountered on my own. I've already talked to the devs on the IRC channel and the mailing list. So this is a thing. They're not going to worry about it though. So, and I'll explain here in a minute. If you uninstalled Thunar, which I talked about this last week, by the way, if you uninstall
Why
Thunar,
would you do that?
Because I don't like Thunar. I prefer Nemo.
That's not how things work.
Yes, it is.
Ow.
Because you can do this.
That hurt. Joshua, your mic is really messed up, dude.
It's Linux. You're supposed to be able to change it even if you make bad decisions while you do.
This is true.
I like his explanation.
Got him.
But if you uninstall Thunar and you use a different file manager and you have icons on the desktop using XF Desktop, then you can't do anything with those icons. And the reason for that is because Thunar supplies a service over dbus to XF Desktop. And if that service is not there, you can't do anything. So I feel like they need to move the move the dbus session stuff out of Thunar into its own separate package. That way that's not an issue. Or, you have to make your own workaround. And I've made a workaround. And I was hoping that I could get it pulled in as an official XFCE package so that I can get it on other distros. But they're not going to pull it in because it apparently is a pretty niche thing, in their opinion, from who I talked to. And I understand that. Apparently, most people don't uninstall Thunar.
No, most people don't, Thomas.
I couldn't imagine why. Because, being able to
look,
Thunar
is a really good file manager. Okay, it's not my favorite, but it is a really good file manager. The only problem I have with Thunar is that it lists the devices first on the left tree. That's not what you normally would look for first. And that's a little minor, small thing that drives me insane. But other than that, Thunar is a perfectly good file manager.
I'm not going to say it's terrible because to some people it's great. I personally don't like it because you have to have Thunar and the whole Thunar bulk rename thing installed. And I don't want both of them. I just want a file manager. I don't want to do any bulk renaming. And I can't open as root like you can do in Nemo because I actually do use that sometimes. I know it's not the best thing to do, but if I want to do that, I want to be able to do that. I want to have that ability. So I always uninstall Thunar and install Nemo. Now, of course, Nemo pulls in a bunch of Cinnamon stuff, but the only thing that it pulls in that is exposed in the GUI is the archiver thing, and that's fine. I don't mind that because I would probably use it anyway. Honestly, if they just moved that dbus whole thing in the background into its own package, first off, I feel like that's the way it should have been done from the very beginning. That way it is more modular. But also, I wouldn't have as big of an issue with Thunar because then I could use those desktop icons and not have to have Thunar installed if I so chose. So it's a minor little thing, but to me, it's a bigger thing because I have been working on fixing that bug for 2 weeks. So.
All right, Daniel. Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah. So I saw some of that discussion kind of on the sidelines as it was happening, and that is something that I think could possibly be kind of brought into Debian potentially. Maybe not directly as an XFCE project, but as a side project. So that's something I may discuss with you outside of here.
Very nice. Daniel?
All right. So I did forget one thing, and that was I'm the kind of person that likes the natural scrolling. And I was prepared for this. I was expecting it, but you do have to change the that for your touchpad and your mouse separately. And also my keyboard got picked up as a mouse, so I thought, anyway. But then also there was no way to turn on natural horizontal scrolling for a touchpad in the FCE GUI. I was able to put something like an X profile or one of those things that did that manually, but it would be nice if that was in the GUI.
Could I ask you to test something real quick, or whenever you get a chance? If you press Shift while scrolling, does it do the sideways thing for you?
What do you mean?
So horizontal scrolling, apparently Shift on a lot of systems is a modifier for scrolling. So if you scroll while holding Shift, it should go sideways.
Well, yeah. I was just talking about if I'm using a touchpad.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I want to scroll sideways, swiping sideways, I have to switch back and forth between doing natural scrolling up and down and doing the Windows style scrolling side to side.
So it won't do a diagonal.
Or basically, it's moving the window instead of moving the page.
Oh,
and
I see. Okay.
Yeah, there's an option to change that in Xorg. If you dig deep into the setxkb or whatever that thing is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there's no way to do it in the XFCE mouse and touchpad GUI as of yet.
All right. Anybody else got anything? Oh, Computer Kid, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
So actually, I just remembered something that he reminded me. I actually liked the fact that I thought the touchpad and mouse controls were together because KDE didn't have that. And I was like, oh, this is nice. This has always bugged me. And you didn't have that?
I was talking about how they were if you wanted natural scrolling, you had to turn it on. Maybe, I guess some people could call it a feature, but you had to turn it on separately for your mouse and your touchpad instead of just saying I want natural scrolling everywhere, which some DEs like GNOME let you do.
Right.
I don't know. I thought they were together. I'm still being told that my mic is low. I can't get this mic to be loud. It's a bad mic.
All right. Anybody else got anything for Xubuntu 2004? All right. So, Sean, you got any final thoughts on 2004's release?
It was fun. There's a lot that went into it. It's an LTS, so we kind of been building towards this for the last 2 years. And now that that's out of the way, we're starting to work on the next LTS. So we published some news today that Ubuntu is now on GitHub.
Really?
So we have moved all of our repositories to GitHub with mirrors back in Launchpad for people that want to stay there. And we've moved our translations to Transifex, which should make it significantly easier for contributors to join in and help make Ubuntu better. So
very nice.
So I welcome you all to check it out at github.com/Ubuntu and start our projects.
Definitely going to be adding it to my list.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll always be there for you. XFCE is a great desktop, and there's no reason to say that XFCE is not a great desktop.
Thanks.
I'm sure I could find a reason if I really try.
Thomas, never mind.
All right. I would like to thank you, Sean, for all of the effort and work that you guys put into it. Not just you, but the whole team that you work with, everybody behind the scenes that doesn't get mentioned. It is an awesome thing to have people like you put your time and effort in when you're not asking to be paid for it. You're not asking for money. You're doing it from your heart. And I really appreciate that, man.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Ask a question.
Yeah, you sure can.
What's the reasoning behind the choice to choose GitHub rather than GitLab? Not to insult that choice, I was just wondering.
So there's a couple of reasons behind it. The main one is GitHub is where the contributors already are. So basically being kind of the largest, open source, software platform, a lot of people that could be potential contributors already have an account. And that's kind of the main reason why we choose GitHub over any other option currently. And then the side reasons of why we chose it instead of like sticking on Launchpad, it makes it a lot easier for contributors. It makes it a lot easier for the maintainers to all contribute to it. And it kind of brings everything into one place. So if you just go to the Xubuntu project, now you can find all of our code and, give back a little bit easier.
So did you have to switch over from Bazaar to Git, or does Launchpad actually support Git now? I've never been clear about that, and you were using that already.
Yeah, so Launchpad supports Git-ish.
Oh.
So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so basically all of the awesome tooling that Launchpad has, about 10% of it actually works with Git. So we lost access when we moved to Git 2 years ago. We lost access to things like syncing the translations back and forth. So there's always a translations queue that had to be manually pulled, and you couldn't link things to series. So it became a lot harder to say, hey, this is where current development is. You'd have to kind of dig around, and sometimes it would show you the wrong pages. It was not ideal.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. That's going to wrap up our Xubuntu 2004 section. We have another Ubuntu on the list for next week. Tony, do you have it installed yet? Okay, good. So we can announce it. The next Ubuntu we're going to check out next week will be Ubuntu Budgie 2004. And hopefully we can get like Dustin or David, one of them guys on here.
I have David's Telegram, DMing him right now.
So, yeah, that's what we're going to check out this week. And if you want to join us in checking that out, that's great. You can download it, install it, join our Telegram group, talk about it, get help if you need it, and then we'll be back next Saturday to talk about it. That is the first hour. Second hour, again, we have Rick Timmis coming in to give us a Kubuntu Focus update. But I did want to go over an email before they get in here about a message. We've been ongoing with this whole immigration department from Jamaica, and this is another update that I got emailed. And it says, I watched the show Saturday night, and I wanted to add that a large number of... Hold on. Yeah. I want to add that a large number of both high school and college students here use either Linux Mint, Xubuntu, or Lubuntu, on all their computers here in Jamaica. We would like to thank Dan Simmons and Alan Pope. Thank you from Jamaica. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the kind words. You know, it's a whole team that puts those things together. So I'm just one person.
Yep. And apparently they are going to skip Q4OS like we talked about, and they're going to continue on to other distros. But it's so awesome to hear that so many of them use Linux in whatever way, whether it's Ubuntu or Xubuntu or whatever. Yeah. So there you go.
Absolutely. Cool. Very cool.
All right. So I'm going to open it up to Leo here to give his opinion on Kubuntu, because he wanted to do that last week and didn't get a chance to, and now he's back to defend it.
I have to do it. I don't know that there was anybody that was more than 50% positive on it. So it's got to be me. I got to do it. I'm like 85% positive on it.
Do it.
The main thing that I think everybody was complaining about was the theming, right? That it was inconsistent, or they didn't like it, or it tended to break things. I don't know. Maybe so I'm bad at doing it in Xubuntu apparently, but I'm really good at doing it in Kubuntu. I don't know. I just went straight for the global themes. Swapped it to, I think there's like a Google Chrome OS one or something like that. And I just got to say, blur this, blur that, blur everything. I love it. It's so good. So like the title bar is blurred, and you can go into your terminal and make that blur. Because everybody does the transparent thing. I think it's just what you do now with terminals. But you can add the blur effect on Kubuntu. So it's fantastic. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. Just so there's blur everywhere, right? On your task manager, or on your on the taskbar down at the bottom or top or left or wherever you put it. I just keep staring at it because I have to remember exactly what is blurred, and it's pretty much everything, right? It's just fantastic. I don't know why it makes it just a little bit premium. Is that the word? I feel like premium really just kind of shines through. And just like Xubuntu, it's Ubuntu underneath, which means all your stuff is going to work. Snaps are already installed by default. Flatpak is super easy to get in there. Though I think that did break Discover when I did that. So probably don't do that.
Hey, I just want you to know that I installed Flatpaks and got Snaps and Flatpak working easy on Xubuntu.
They're super nice. Flatpak is nice. It kind of paves over some of the issues I have with Snap, but Snap still has you can do server stuff with Snap. You can Snap install Nextcloud, and you can't do that with Flatpak. So definitely a plus for that. But that's really it. I just wanted to come in here and be like, Kubuntu's cool, guys. It totally is. And there's blur everywhere, and that's fantastic.
As far as the blur, sorry. But the blur thing is another thing you can do. I'll post a link, but there's a thing I found on GitHub. It's a Kwin script that lets you force blur for like not KDE stuff. So like if you use Alacrity, or you can put it in Yaquake, like the drop-down terminal that doesn't support blur by default. I'll post a link in chat.
Nice. I have. Oh, go ahead.
If you like the blur, you guys need to try Kvantum. You haven't experienced KDE's true potential if you haven't tried Kvantum. It allows you to theme the whole thing with just SVGs. You can find SVGs. Try Akava Kvantum. It's AKAVA-KV. It runs under the Kvantum manager. Works on any Qt environment, but it's so blurry. It's amazing. It automatically does it to Dolphin. It blurs a whole bunch of other stuff.
Ooh.
Makes everything
You sound
look
like
pretty
an
all around.
advertiser.
I don't know how much blur I
See
can handle.
most things. I don't need them blurry. But does it blur the mismatching mouse pointer when you go from box to box, or
no?
Does it blur the mismatching Wi-Fi and Bluetooth icon in the panel?
We got to go there, right?
So I will say that if you when you install a global theme, it also comes with an icon theme that fixes a lot of that. Let me see, and I end up using a different theme too. And I've got Sound Recorder up, and I don't experience the weird mouse thing. I've got Sound Recorder, which is I know it's GNOME Sound Recorder, so I know it's a GTK app running in KDE. Now, here's the deal: it uses whatever KDE's default theme is on top of that. So I don't get my cool blur, but it feels way more native now than it ever used to. I mean, I remember opening up anything in GNOME. Like I tried to avoid everything, any kind of GNOME app, because it would just look so bad in Kubuntu. But as long as you're okay with using GNOME apps and still getting the default theme in Kubuntu, it's not bad. It's not bad. But they're two different not architectures. What do you call that? Sets of libraries. I forget what you call them. But yeah, it can't be 100%. That's why I said 85%, 85.
Yeah, with the whole blur thing there, all you do is, half of us here, most of us here have glasses. Just take off our glasses. We'll get the blur effect.
The whole thing is just blur.
But then everything's blurry.
Exactly.
I'm going to
apparently
say
they want everything blurry.
I'm going to say that I love blur.
XFCE's blur works. I mean, you just pop them off.
Frameworks,
XFCE
yeah.
blur, all blur.
There it is. So I've got one last point on this, and it's a plus in the KDE Plasma column. So I've been tinkering a lot with the new Windows terminal. I say new; it's been out for like a year now. But and I saw some screenshots of it, and I saw that the terminal could be blurred. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I definitely got to dive into this. It's easy, right? So I go in. Everything is in JSON, so you basically script it, right? And they call it acrylic, I think. So acrylic : true. And you turn that on and you get a blurred terminal. But the moment you leave that terminal, it unblurs. It just goes straight to gray. And that
the console?
The Windows terminal. So there's CMD,
terminal.
there's PowerShell, and then there's the terminal, which can use all those things all together. But yeah, so you leave the terminal and it goes gray. And the whole point of blurring the thing is that when you leave it, you kind of want it to stay blurred, so you still get that same experience. I was reading, and it turns out that it's basically a fist fight between the Windows Terminal guys and the acrylic guys, and the acrylic guys say no, and the Windows Terminal guys are like, what can we do? So yeah, so point for Plasma because it stays blurred all the time.
Very nice. Farron, you got your hand up.
I'd just like to quickly interject for a moment about Key Phantom. It's like, just on behalf of most of the KDE developers that I've seen about, it's like talking about Key Phantom in the past. There is one major downside to Key Phantom being that the dev doesn't exactly have the best of relationships with the KDE developers. And KDE developers have gone on to say that Key Phantom can be kind of hacky in places with how it works. But to be fair, I'm using Key Phantom currently in FanOS, so that should say a lot with how good it is otherwise, despite that.
It definitely can make some good themes, I can tell you that.
I'm currently using Farron OS on both my machines, my main desktop and my Razer Blade 15.
Very nice.
It's great, running solid.
Nice.
All right, we're going to make a quick transition, seeing as how Leo brought up Kubuntu, because we are joined now by Rick Timmis. Rick, how are you?
I'm really well, Rocco. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. Your mic is a little low. I'm not sure if that it's you picking up the wrong mic or what, but it definitely sounds a little low.
Oh, here he is. Hang on 1 second. I can fix that.
There we go.
There you go.
How about that? Is that better?
It's a little bit too much.
Too loud.
Okay. How about that much?
That'll be fine. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Here we go. Cool.
So how you
All right,
been,
cool.
brother?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you. Give me a second. Let me just try and bring this back up. Yeah, so I think I was fighting with Zoom there. Actually, I'm adjusted just in pulse audio, and I'm adjusting it up, and Zoom's bringing it down, and we're fighting with each other as it was doing that. But yeah, really good actually. Yeah, things are going pretty good. Obviously, not been really going anywhere with this lockdown. So
right.
So everybody just sitting at home and. To get some new glasses for all the Zoom conference calls that I spend my time doing now.
Yep. Well, you brought a friend with you as well.
Yeah, I did. So we got Mike Mikowski here with us, and so Mike is the founder of Mindshare. management and the guy behind the Kubuntu Focus. So I thought it'd be great to get him on and so you could grill him and ask him some questions.
Mike, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. How's my mic?
Your mic is perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Good.
So let me ask you to start out with about the Focus. What was the original purpose? Like, what was the idea behind making this particular laptop?
Well, I've been working with desktop Linux now for over 20 years and have used it in a number of different companies and organizations. And, you know, I've worked with 3D modeling, computer-aided engineering, platforms like advertising platforms, certainly all over the place on Linux servers for the internet. And the Kubuntu Focus is basically the machine I've always wanted, but have never been able to find. Its focus is, I mean, it's all about focus. And the focus is about providing the features that enterprises and developers who are looking to get a job done really need. A great example is the Zoom client is pre-installed. And we have dozens of workflows validated specifically for the hardware. So when you buy this, you know that it's going to work from end to end. A great example is like the professional photography workflow. It's the sort of thing that you won't notice unless it's not done. So if you're going to be doing raw editing, you're going to need a raw editor installed. But before you have a raw editor installed, you also need to make sure that you have the exFAT file system, Fuse file system installed and properly configured, right? So the end user will never notice this unless it doesn't work. And a lot of times things just don't work. And this goes across all platforms. But we test these things out that our customers are concerned about and make sure that they do. They work out of the box.
Yep. So how many workflows do you have like set up where you would be basically setting something up for somebody?
We have over a dozen fully validated ones like gaming. We have curated apps where you can go to a web page and it'll describe an app. It'll describe the alternatives, and you can click on the icon there, and it'll just launch the application directly on your Focus. We have a deep learning workflow, which is weeks of work in itself. You know, how do you run Steam while also running deep learning and TensorFlow 20 times faster than a MacBook Pro? You know, we do that. And every AI engineer I've ever worked with has worked with the Frankenstein monster for their deep learning. It's like they can get Steam to work and they can get deep learning to work, but they can't get them to work at the same time. But if you buy a Focus, you get all that resolved because we've done the weeks of work associated with building the scripts and walking people through. So you can buy this machine and be up and running deep learning in minutes and also be playing Steam games, you know, at the same time if you like.
Yep.
And now, I didn't finish the list of the other workflows, but if I may, we have like a battery reset. What happens if your battery is not working right? How do you connect to Bluetooth? Database administration. How do you do a clean install? Enterprise security, including YubiKey. I mentioned gaming already. You know, how do you switch your GPUs? How do you maximize your battery life? How do you configure your touchpad and mouse? What do you have a gaming mouse? How do you update and software and install it and manage it? How do you run VirtualBox? How do you do video editing? All of those are supported out of the box. And you know, you want to run VirtualBox. Everything's installed. You just fire it up.
Well, this is a very powerful machine. Okay, it has some very high specs in it, and it may not be for everybody because of that. Because it also comes with a higher price tag, a premium price tag of what you would find with other laptops. What do you think sets this apart from other laptops? And I don't want to get into like this person's terrible, or this company's not good and we're better.
Of course
but just differences between why somebody would pick a Focus.
Well, because of our focus, right? Our focus is on getting things done and making sure that you have the LTS level of stability. One thing that, let me give you an example. Like, you could pick a rolling release, right? A rolling release distribution, which is a lot of fun. Let's face it, all of us here know how to run a rolling release distribution, and we find it a lot of fun. We're the faithful, right? But we're looking to convert people, and 75% of our customers are converting from other OSs. We're looking to convert people where having the danger of doing an upgrade and breaking their system isn't acceptable. We love living on the bleeding edge, but our customers don't. And that's, I think, the key thing and the key focus that we provide. We also provide all the other aspects that the working professionals and enterprise really need, like same-day service, live support, cross-shipping. All of those components come together to provide an ecosystem that helps ensure that people can keep working and getting their job done. And then when they're done with their work, when they're done working for the man, they can kick back and play, 6,000 games on Steam. And that works too. So I think that's really what it's all about. It's about focus. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not creating stuff that's already there and done well. What we're doing is we're trying to fill in the gaps that have always been missing. And, I've been an architect in Silicon Valley for 10 years and an architect on large scale Linux deployments for 20 years. And, I've had teams that have run all Linux or partial Linux, and these have always been deficits. And so with the machines. So right now, companies either have to spend a lot of time and effort and money having their developers rework their MacBooks, for example, to get a Linux-like deployment environment emulated inside of that with their BSD tools. And let me tell you, I've done a lot of conversions between BSD scripts to Linux scripts because nobody deploys on Mac. Everybody deploys on Linux, right? And so you wouldn't believe how much time is spent up for developers creating their own Frankenstein Linux compatible environment that they'll never be able to recreate, and then getting it out to the deployment environment. But then conversely, with Linux solutions, you end up with the opposite end. People end up spending days or weeks tweaking their Linux environment so it provides the sort of desktop experience and the battery life and the other features that they need. And that's also Frankenstein because nobody has time to document it and properly sort it out. So what we provide, and of course there are other companies that provide different levels of the same thing. We provide centralization of that and doing that professionally, documenting it and sharing it with the community. And we think it's a very valuable service. And we don't do 15 different models. We do one model, and we do it real well.
Yep. I think that's important to have like a stability thing, to have one model and do it well. So who is the exact target audience for the Focus?
Our target audiences are people that are looking for an aspirational Linux box, certainly performance-focused folks. We had a chief scientist over at a national laboratory recently. He picked up a device, and we now are a tier 1 supplier to that laboratory. And he was able to complete his TensorFlow work in an hour and a half. Previously, it took 37 plus hours, according to him, on his MacBook Pro.
Oh, wow.
So, there are more than just that example. For example, Some things like node installs that take 30 minutes on a Windows 10 box will take a minute or less on the Kubuntu Focus. Now, these are extreme examples, but there's lots of other examples like SQLite and MySQL, et cetera. You install those in seconds using the package manager, and you get a production representative installation. So when you're developing to deploy to Linux, because you don't deploy to something else, you get a feel for what it's going to be like before you push it out. And your scripts are ported directly over. You don't have to go, and I've touched on that before, you don't have to go and spend days in some cases reworking build scripts to make them work in production. They're already there. So it's all about efficiency and flow and quite frankly, happiness of the people that are developing the solutions that we use every day on the internet and in deep learning and that sort of group. So, you know, we're not looking for somebody who's a journalist that publishes articles using Google Docs, right? We're looking for people, or we're providing solutions for people that need powerful results where they can replace a workstation with this laptop on the go.
Very nice. Any questions for Mike or Rick? Computer Kid, you got a question? You have your hand up yet?
Yes. Oh, okay. So, took me a minute to remember. You spoke about having different workflows on there, like machine learning and gaming and stuff like that. Where is that choice? Is it somewhere in the setup process or in the buying, or are they all installed?
All the software for the workflows are pre-installed. And it's not a lot of software. I mean, we're not talking multiple gigabytes or dozens of gigabytes. We're talking a couple of gigabytes, especially when, and the majority of that comes from things like the CUDA libraries. Those are pretty heavy. But a lot of the other stuff like the Fuse exFAT library, you never notice it. Even with the 250 gigabyte SSD option, you're looking at a total install of maybe 20 gigabytes. I mean, you're looking at a total install smaller than an average AAA game these days.
So just small background stuff that makes it work a bit smoother. That sounds pretty cool.
Well, it's focused on making sure that what you want to do is ready to go when you want it to go. And it doesn't just make things smoother for people who are not familiar with Linux, who are, again, are 75% of our customer base. It's the difference between it works and it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, again, we're the faithful. We know how to do this, right? But a lot of our customers don't. So it's the difference between success and non-success, or the difference between success and failure in some cases.
Scrapjaw?
Yeah, I have a question, but first an observation. I just bought, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you guys were in, but I bought a 2019 mid-model Razer Blade 15 with the 2060 in it. And it's got the same i9 processor that, or i7 processor that you guys have. The big difference is that it wasn't the price. It was the fact that you have an extra NVMe drive slot and SSD slot, where I am basically graphics card, motherboard, NVMe, and a display. Well, it's obviously a gaming laptop, but I do podcasting. And I got this laptop because I needed something that was as powerful as my desktop, but was light. And that's the question is, I don't know, how heavy is that? Because I carry this around sometimes to do on-site recording, especially even during right now where like a lot of churches aren't doing on-site worship. I'm going in and I'm recording some of the musicians, and then they're rebroadcasting that recording. So,
right. So the answer is it's not a very big machine, right? It's about 3/4 of an inch thick, and it comes in at 2.2 kilograms. So for those of us who did the math out there, it's a little over 4.4 pounds, or about between 4.4 and 4.5 pounds. The models vary a little bit by weight, and but we're only talking a couple grams if we put in 64 gigabytes of RAM versus 16, right? And by the way, we don't sell 8 gigabytes of RAM. We don't lure you in with, you can buy this dirt cheap with a half channel of RAM, right? We only sell the type of configurations that we'd want people on our team to use, right? Yeah, you can look at, if you go and look on some other stores, you might see that they have these dirt cheap configurations that you can buy, but you don't want them. They have no NVMe. They have only an SSD from an off-brand. And we're using Samsung. Hi, kid. Hi, son. We're using Samsung brand 970 Evo Pluses, which have fantastic burst rates. They only suffer compared to the Pro when you're dealing with prolonged data transfers. So for the majority of our customers, the Evo Plus is about as good as it gets.
That's awesome. See, I bought this laptop. A couple of weeks ago, I went on a trip to do a fish rescue, and within our podcast and another group that we are affiliated with, and I pulled the trigger on this $1,800 that included tax because I was good on that trip quick. But if I hadn't, I'd have probably sat on that money I had until now and heard this, and then I just pulled the trigger on that. So, because I would have a scratch disk, I would have a gaming disk, because, when I'm rendering something, sometimes it takes a good, 20 minutes if I've got a 2-hour podcast at a certain bit rate, So, but luckily this laptop's pretty quick at it. It's actually quicker than my desktop at rendering some things. But yeah, that's a really awesome comparison when I look at the Razer Blade that I bought. Good job.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
Shickle.
So I hear that it's got an NVIDIA graphics card in it, which I'm happy with that. So I'm not going to knock you for that, because you got to use what works. And in terms of the mobile sector, NVIDIA's GPUs are really, really good. How exactly are you guys sorting things like GPU switching and integrated graphics stuff? Is there an app for that, or?
There's a workflow for that, obviously, and it's a validated workflow, which means, and the reason why we call them validated is because we test them and we regression test them on a regular basis. Part of stability means that a workflow doesn't work one day and then we forget about it. A workflow has to work all the time. So we run automated regression tests, either directly on the hardware or in virtual machines where the hardware doesn't matter, to ensure that that workflow is always available. Now, there are some desktops that do support hybrid graphics. We do not. And we do not because it's complex and it really doesn't save you much. Because in order to run hybrid graphics, you have to have your graphics card at the ready, on idle. And your graphics card can pull 5 to 7 watts on idle. Now, we've done battery tuning to the point where we've got rid of BB switch, we got rid of ACPI call. We go directly to sysfs and do calls to tune down the power draw. And now at idle, we have 7 watts of power draw. That means that we have almost 9 hours of idle power draw. And in real world use, we see up to 5 hours. And if you close the lid a couple of times, you're probably going to stretch into 6 hours. No. If you do things like video transcoding, et cetera, during that time, of course, the battery power is going to go down. But if you're surfing the web, or better yet, Vim editing, right, then the numbers go way up, right? That's how it works. So I think that's the key thing, is that we recognize that these workflows aren't just for today, they're forever. And we always need to continually test them and make sure that they're available for our customers. We want to catch any problems that might come about before any customer does and act proactively to fix them. And then actually, we have a fixed system that's in place called Focus RX, which if we find an issue that can't be resolved outside the normal upgrade process, there's an entire infrastructure in place that will, when you log in will notify you of an issue and will step you through a workflow to resolve it. So it'll step you through, say, package installation and removal, et cetera. And it's not asking you to type in. It'll actually just ask you to approve the steps, and it'll explain the steps each step of the way. So that's called Focus RX. We're really proud of that, and we're expecting to use more and more of that. Right now, one of the things it does, and we use this on multiple workflows, is it helps make sure that the NVIDIA and the deep learning libs are all properly set up, no matter how badly they might have gotten screwed up for whatever reason. You know, a lot of customers end up going out there, and instead of looking at our workflow, and I don't blame them, this happens, they end up picking up a tutorial. And the problem with the tutorial is it's not written for your hardware. And it's also written 2 years ago. So, but this person looks at the tutorial and thinks it's going to solve things. And so they go ahead and follow it, and they end up, you know, breaking a whole bunch of stuff, right? The beauty of the workflow is it's for your hardware and it's guaranteed to work, right? So think about it. Think about how many times you've gone to a tutorial online and you got 75% of the way through and you realize you just totally hosed your entire system, right? Now, I've done that numerous times. I can't count how many times I've done that, actually. And this is kind of in a reaction to that. Is like, no, I don't want that anymore. I want a complete solution where I go to a workflow and it's guaranteed to work. And if it doesn't, I can get on the phone with somebody and figure out why it doesn't work in minutes.
Well, that's pretty important for a production machine, like especially if you're doing it for work. So,
yeah.
Daniel, you're muted, Daniel.
Oh, okay. All right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I had, when I set up NVIDIA hybrid graphics on my laptop, they actually have added power management to it, as long as you have a Turing GPU, which I believe the Focus does. And
Yes.
so we'll put the GPU into like a sleep state.
Yes, you can do that.
If it stays offline for long enough.
Right. Right.
So,
but you got to
okay,
balance that with the complexity.
Okay.
Especially with that. So there, again, I'm not saying that not use cases where you might come out ahead using hybrid graphics, but in our experience, we don't think it's worth the additional complexity. You know, remember, now you have 3 graphics modes, and now you're going to be running you're going to be piping some things through the GPU and some things through the iGPU. And when you're doing that, you're basically at least very close to the same power draw as if you were just running integrated graphics along. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So just like less Xorg confness magic and less complexity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ultimately, what we see with most use cases is that when you're using the GPU, you're using the GPU and you're plugged in. Even with the GPU running on battery, in some cases, the RTX subsystems are in some cases multiple times slower than when you're plugged in. So, you know, when you're gaming and you want to get your game on, what do? You plug in. You're doing deep learning, you plug in. Okay, you want to do Vim editing or web surfing, well, then iGPU is fine. And we've tuned our boot time so that after the BIOS boot, it's 8 seconds to get from the LKit, from the Lux encryption menu to the login screen. And then it's 4 seconds from that to usable desktop. So you have a 12-second time delay. So the majority of our boot time is actually BIOS boot, not the actual system boot. But even with the BIOS boot, you're at 28 seconds. So how much of a hardship really is it to get maximum battery life? Not much. And we've also tuned things like sleep and resume so that they're just a couple of seconds to go into either one of those modes. And so that makes it, and we've also removed many of the cases where resume and sleep will get blocked. So now you can go into a meeting, you know, you got your boss who won't shut up, you just close the lid, boom, you got battery saving in 2 seconds, right? And then you can come out of the meeting, open up the lid again, and start burning through the battery however you want to.
All right, thanks.
Scrap.
Yeah, I was looking at the different workflows, and I see that audio and sequencing with Reaper is in progress. Is there a
Mhm.
place where anybody who may have input or be able to contribute to some of that?
Well, I can. I mean, we've tested Reaper and we love it. And I have compositions that I put together using, the purchased Reaper, the studio version of it. And I've also picked up professional piano sounds. We spent hundreds of dollars, and thousands if you want to include labor costs, in making sure that Reaper runs great. And I can actually share with you a composition that you can check out, that's rendered with Reaper, and it renders extremely fast. I mean, it's a 6-minute composition, and it renders in like 20 seconds.
Wow.
So it's nice. You know, the biggest drawback on using Reaper on the machine isn't the core capability. It's so like it always is. It's there's certain plugins that are Windows only. There's certain plugins that are Mac only. But Reaper, you can do a lot. And there's actually a dedicated Linux page that has a lot of instruments and the like that you can pick up. But like a lot of these things, it ain't free, right? And again, the freedom aspect of the OS is very important here. But the freedom aspect from a monetary standpoint is not the key thing here for our product. The key thing is it works, and it works on the deployment environments where it matters. So the freedom is important because it frees you from a mothership and from random upgrades that you can't control. And it frees you to become part of the larger Linux ecosystem.
Yeah, and one of the big things that got me to move to Linux was the flexibility and freedom within the audio for Jack.
Yeah.
The other guys that are part of the podcast I edit for, they're on Windows, and I have to jump through so many hoops and ladders and everything with different apps and virtual audio cables, and there's such a stack of stuff that eventually breaks, that we have it running for like this window of time, and we have that amount of resources to use, and then I'm the one guy over here like, come on, do the Linux thing. So do you guys use Jack in any of that setup?
At this point,
workflows?
we haven't had a need to use Jack. We've actually just used the default ALSA and the Pulse Audio for the things that we've tested so far. I'm certain Jack offers, and certainly we all know Jack provides lower latency. It's just not something that we've had a need for yet for the projects. So, we can't be any one single source of truth for everything, but we can be a brokerage that can help point you in the right directions. And I think you'll see that on some of the workflows. What we do is we make sure that the product works well on our system, and that any components that are specific to our system are in place. But then, like for more general purpose use, like how do you do GIMP? There's a great guy, his name is Jesus, and I forget his last name right now, but Jesus anyway. He provides a fantastic list of tutorials for the version of GIMP that we ship. So we republished that, and we've asked him to come along and be the author on our image editing page. Haven't heard back from him yet, but we hope that he will take us up on that, and we're looking to extend to further partnerships with other content creators like that. So we can't solve everything, but we can bring together the people and the knowledge necessary so that it can be a great solution for you and for other people like you.
Right. And that's I've tried to put some little tutorials, and every once in a while I have people from this community will shoot me a message like, hey man, we know you know how to use Jack and get everything working. And so I'll take time and sit with people. And it's like, I'm not very good at doing video, but if I sit down with somebody who can take my knowledge and use it, that would be great if it could get somewhere where everyone could have it.
I will
So-
take your knowledge and use it.
That'd be
So
awesome.
if you're interested in getting involved with authorship on the Reaper component, we will work with you on. We recognize the value that you bring to the organization, the community, when you do that. You know, one of the things that somebody asked me once about the system is said, you know, what would you like to be known for? And you know, one of the things that I'm enormously grateful for are the Arch Linux forums. We all run different distributions, but who here hasn't gone to the Arch Linux forum to actually solve a problem in a much more complete way than anything else? In fact, the Arch user forums are behind probably a third of all of our fixes and optimizations, and because they're more correct. And you know, the first thing you do is you install BB switch, right? But once you go to the Arch forums, you figure out, and through other means, but that's a great source for that sort of thing. Now, going back to my point, we want to be known for the workflow component, right? We want people who are in Arch Linux to come to our workflows and go, oh, that's how you put together an end-to-end solution. So we'd like to pay them back in a kind of like a different product, if you will, for their efforts. And of course, this is all freely available on our website. There's nothing that we're not that we're hiding or not making available for anybody. We're just trying to build an awesome product that people will love and get affiliation for, or affection for, I should say.
And I had one other question. Is I was on I've been trolling through your website here, and there's the try section here. That so if you could tell us how we could try this, that'd be awesome.
Sure. So we have multiple users in many different countries that are currently using a clean install of the Kubuntu Focus suite of software on laptops and desktops. We have it here on 6 different laptop models and 4 different desktop models as well. And it works great on all of them. Now, you can do that too. In fact, you could probably put it on your Razor Blade with quite a bit of success. We don't officially support that because our focus is on our product, but you could do that. And a lot of people have done that very successfully. HP Envies are ones that just recently were installed. A gentleman in Italy did that, and he was very excited that he got excellent results with that. So that's one way you can do it. You can do a install to the bare metal if you want. Another way to do it is, of course, you can run in a virtual machine. You can do that either by installing it directly on, say, a virtual machine using our clean install workflow, which, by the way, is very smooth. And we use that for when our personnel load the machine and ship it out to you. So there's no secret procedure where we make magic work. It's the same thing that you get on the website. So you can do it in your own virtual machine, or you can download a virtual appliance. All we ask is for people to sign up to our newsletter, and you download it and open it in VirtualBox. In 2 minutes, you're running it. What do you lose? Not much, but you do lose, obviously, the hardware optimizations. There's lots of those to make sure that the CPU runs at optimal speeds for battery savings or high performance, etc. But the aspects of the workflow, for example, are all there, right? And again, on your Razor Blade, I think your Razor Blade's probably a really good hardware fit. But again, outside of supported hardware, which is just our one model, we always recommend that you back everything up before you do it and run. Speaking of backups, one of the things that we marked off as being extremely important, because we're competing with Time Machine, is we need to be able to roll back if somebody messed something up. So any user that's added to the system automatically gets hourly snapshots using back in time, pre-configured, with GitHub excluded from that and Dropbox excluded from that because backing those things up are silly, right? They're their own backup, right? So that's the sort of care that we put into the configuration of these machines. That's what makes it, I think, different. This is designed for a Silicon Valley or high-tech engineer anywhere in the world that's developing, and with years of hard-won experience built into it. And we think we add a lot of value by doing that.
Joe?
I'm going to plead a little ignorance to my question, but I'm more familiar with the desktop versions between AMD and Intel. And this is not to start an AMD and Intel battle. I understand when you're trying to optimize hardware, it's more efficient to focus on probably fewer pieces to try to get everything to work together.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice that you only have one CPU option.
Right.
The question I would have is, would there ever be an AMD option? And the only reason why I'm going to say this is because it looks like your machine, which is beautiful, by the way, quite well done by what I could see. In looking, comparing to a desktop, and the reason I'm saying pleading ignorance, because I'm not as familiar with the CPUs in the laptops, because I mean, we have them, but I don't use them the same way. When you look at a lot of the benchmarking that's done, whether it's for gaming or whether it's for production, whether you're a video producer or whatever, or musical or that sort of thing, the argument is that Intel has always been better, or a little bit better performing, and the gap has gotten closed very tightly now.
Yeah,
it's gotten a little bit. Intel's edged out for gaming, where AMD is edged out for production work.
Mm-hmm.
So is it, or would it ever be beneficial, or are you ever going to consider possibly doing an AMD? Because part of the reason why I'm asking this too is again, you buy a laptop like this, you're not looking to buy that budget machine like you had described earlier. Right. But AMD does have an advantage of giving you performance very closely to Intel with a cost savings, if that makes sense, because it is still coming in at a lower price point. But there's other reasons for using it too. So that, I guess that's kind of my question is, do you think you'd ever offer that as an option?
Well, let me just wax philosophical for a little while, because I felt like waxing. So so the short answer to your question is yes, we would definitely consider an AMD CPU for future models. And quite frankly, it's on the table right now. There are, however, a number of criteria that we have to ensure we meet. If you look at the laptops that are currently available with AMD, and my survey is from memory and it's certainly not complete, but they generally fall into two categories. One is I believe it's the Renoir. Somebody correct me here where I'm wrong, but the Renoir processor, which uses the previous generation GPU and is comparable or a bit faster than the iGPUs that are available, let's say the 620Us in the 975, and again, I'm probably misquoting some numbers here. But then there's the other category, which is they're putting a desktop AMD processor into a thicker chassis. And some of those have like 12 cores, 24 threads, which sounds amazing. But we can't go with that. We can't go with that because if you're using that, you have to use your GPU. So now you're drawing 7 or 10 watts or 12 watts on your CPU, and you're drawing 7 watts at idle or 5 watts at idle with your GPU. So now you're looking at 22 watt hours. Now, we're a ways away from a future model. But even if we were to go with a 99 watt hour battery, okay, you can just do the math on that, right? If you're doing 22 watts per hour, you're going to be lucky to hit 5 hours. And our bare minimum that we want to be able to allow professionals to have is 5 hours of usable battery life. So it's like anything, you gotta, we're about the entire product, not just one metric. So those are a couple of things that we're up against. but we are certainly considering them, and we are shopping. So maybe not next generation, but highly likely next generation. So I can't talk too much in detail about all of that right now, but again, we're always looking forward, and we are shopping, and AMD is not out of the picture right now. It's just, these are some things that we're thinking about that we have to keep in mind when we're looking at the whole product.
And I get that, because that was the other thing too I failed to mention. Was one of the things that came to mind is, like, again, comparing to a desktop CPU, is AMD always used to be, I mean, they were hot boxes in their earlier days. They've come quite a long ways to, I mean, you can have a pretty decent processor that runs 65 watts now.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how that would translate into laptop uses, because you're talking about, power consumption, and what you just said there makes perfect sense to me. So at least it's interesting to know that there may be that option down the way. And I've tended to lean toward AMD. I'm not against Intel by any means. You use whatever works for you at the time, and I think a lot of it is you're getting a lot of performance now for the money, is what it comes down to. And I think that's what a lot of people are buying.
Yeah, and let's be right up front here, right? The market is not large enough for us to have a completely custom design, right? We're not going to spend a couple $1 million or $10 million doing a custom circuit board for the size of the market that we're dealing with. If you take the entire Linux laptop market right now, then you can't justify that. Now, we're not trying to enter a market. We're trying to build a market. We're making a market, right? We're not going after the Linux faithful. You guys are all sold. I'm sold. A lot of influencers that use Linux are sold. But what we have to sell are the people where the sort of stuff that we take for granted on a daily basis, like, oh, well, I have to go into here and go open up GNOME tweaks to get this done, right? And then you just monkey patch and you move on your way. That's not acceptable. For the people that are buying these laptops, that has to be fixed before it goes out the door, or it has to be fixed after it goes out the door without them having to figure out how to do it. Grandma needs to be able to use this computer because she needs to do deep learning real soon.
I will say this, one of the conversations we've had many times over, and Rocco does a great job in it, even with his interviews with his spotlight, is does Linux, quote unquote, do a good job marketing itself? I think it comes down to the companies now, like yourself or System 76 or whoever, that it probably falls more to them than Linux. And the machine, I mean, just everything you said tonight, I mean, it'd be a perfect sales pitch. You could probably get a lot of people using that machine that are looking for some horsepower and want to do something different and maybe get away from Windows. And it's just, getting that message out there. And of course, we're going to do whatever we can to help promote it, because, like I said, it's a beautiful looking machine. What I saw looking at the website. So I kudos to you for all the work you've done so far.
Well, thank you. And I think that the thing that you don't see in reviews is that, the constant testing, the constant insurance of those workflows, et cetera. Those you do see, though, when you're looking at supporting organizations and people where they don't love Linux. They're using Linux because it makes sense. That's the market that we're making and that we're building. And we're seeing more and more organizations talking about bringing in numerous of this one model because it's the right thing to do. It makes business sense. And we're trying to make sure that it makes business sense by removing those barriers to entry. It's not, people always say, Linux has awful marketing, but I don't think that's the case. I think Linux has very good marketing. It just needs that little gap that's existing there in service and in support to bring it over the edge. And that's what we're trying to do. And we think that we're having a positive effect on the marketplace in general. I think we're seeing obvious responses to the things we're doing from other people that are also providing Linux hardware, and we think that's a positive thing.
Well, The machine looks absolutely awesome. Would love to have one someday. Someday. But is there anything else you want to share with us about the Focus to close out?
Yeah, let's see. Let me just, I have a couple notes here that I've splashed in front of me. You guys have asked some awesome questions. We do have a review on Tyler's Tech. I think he does a great job of, he's a very upfront, doesn't waste your time, straightforward talking guy. And he doesn't give a glowing review of the Focus, but he gives an honest review. And now you combine that with the all the enterprise features we find, and we think that it's a compelling product. So I encourage anybody, if you want to look at an honest review that doesn't pull any punches, go ahead and take a look at that. Some people complain about the GUI here. GUI is a GUI, and it's Plasma. Plasma is very lightweight these days. It's very fast, and as always, it's enormously configurable. If you don't like the toolbar where it is, move it. And if you need to know how to move it, if we get a groundswell of people that want to move the toolbar, we'll put together the workflow necessary to illustrate how to do that in both of our supported versions. Yes, we're shipping 20.04. We have been shipping 20.04 since the 2nd of May. And we've done the same regression tests that apply against the 18.04 distribution also applies to 20.04. So if you install it, you basically pick whichever one you want to install, and then all the packages adjust accordingly by reading what version you've installed, and then we'll take the appropriate logical route to make sure that your OS is supported. So in other words, you install 18.04 or 20.04, the installation of the remaining Kubuntu suite, the Kubuntu Focus suite, is the same. You don't have to change anything. You just follow the workflow and it'll work. So.
Very nice.
There you go.
All right, Rick, you want to add anything at this point?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, so obviously we're at Kubuntu, we're really excited at how quickly Focus has moved to build its product on top of 20.04. And the whole vision, like when I came to talk to you about it for the first time, the whole vision really, what we were excited about was the fact that if Kubuntu is the platform, that you then build the product off. And so we really hoped that what Mindshare would do is this kind of stuff. And certainly, so I've personally had an opportunity to experiment with the CUDA stuff and basically all the Anaconda install from scripts to build out all the AI framework and get Jupyter notebooks running and stuff like that. And in my professional role, I've also had to do that before independently. And it is long-winded and erroneous, and it's easy to get yourself in a situation whereby, especially when you're working with 2 or 3 other developers, where actually you haven't all got the same setup, and you get in odd behavior between what's happening, with one setup and another. And that was really slick to be able to do that. Just K-Focus, Conda, and off you go, run the script, and away you go. So that's really good. But I think one of the other things that we're starting to learn really quickly, and it's probably become even more pertinent now because of the changes that are taking place so quickly this year. So we've got this, they're calling it this new normal, but the whole COVID landscape, right, is changing the whole social and economic landscape of the world globally, right, in many different ways, right? So you can see the environmental change. I see the environmental change every single day, because here, when I go outside, I see blue sky much, much more frequently now than I ever have done before, because there are no planes in the sky. When we walk about the back of our house onto the hill and we look out across the city, I can see right across the city all the way out to the sea at Exmouth, and the air is really clean. Large corporations and big enterprises are finding this time really challenging. It's really challenging their business model. And of course, it is impacting small businesses too. But for many small businesses, they're thriving. I have a friend of mine who sells tech gadgetry, like esoteric electronics for videos and phones and stuff like this on eBay, and his sales have multiplied by 500%, 5 times. So since 2 months ago, his sales have gone through the roof. We're seeing lots and lots of small enterprises that are starting to do really well locally. Here, for example, we're seeing the local fruit and veg greengrocer who is now delivering food in boxes to people, and all of a sudden their sales are astronomical, whereas the supermarkets, people aren't going to them. The point I'm making here is that if you go back to the 1970s, one of the things that was really interesting about the 70s is it was very entrepreneurial. In the US, you had loads and loads of small businesses rather than large enterprises. And so we're now starting to see that take hold in the tech industry. So if you like specialized products like the Focus, where you've got this, actually, it's a really nice harmony, because all the work that Mindshare has been doing with the Focus scripts and the website and the other tooling and stuff like that is all available to us in the Kubuntu community. We can engage, and we're talking with Mike about doing that at the moment, about how can we bring the community around the work that you're doing and actually contribute to some of those things in an open way. And of course, Mike's team are in a position to do that because of their because they're smaller in size than a large enterprise. They can be more dynamic and react more quickly. What's really interesting, the opportunity that I think that every distribution has, right? So we're just very fortunate here in Kubuntu that Mindshare approached us and wanted to work with our distribution because of the Plasma desktop and the things that they'd got underway. But, you know, Ubuntu and Xubuntu and other tools, I think there are opportunities now for partnerships to take place between the open source development community and those entrepreneurs that want to bring a product into the market space and target something niche. So, you know, Scrap was talking about all the audio work. I'm very interested around that. You know, well, distributions like Ubuntu Studio, for example, you know, what is the opportunity of a hardware ODM vendor looking at targeting that sector? And particularly when you think about the way that music's changing, you know. So, I mean, my church here in the UK, they've just put together a track called Blessing, all done remotely, with about 120 or so different artists or different church groups who've recorded all of this stuff and sent it to a central point, and then edited that into an audio video and released it. Well, quickly those things will become that creative intelligence, right? I think that creative intelligence has strong potential for the future of our economy. And those changes, and watch this space over the next 6 months and you see how this changes. And I think that's where there's some real opportunity for the community and ODM vendors to work closely together and target these niche sectors to bring a really clean, tight product that gives people really great value. So those are my comments and my thoughts on kind of where we're at the moment. And overall, from Kubuntu's perspective, I think this whole adventure is playing out really positively, Rocco, and we're really pleased with it. And you know, the guys at Mindshare are doing a great job, and we're very happy about that.
Well, I am very happy about the effort that's put forth on both ends, because it fills a spot that the Linux world needs, I believe. So I appreciate what you're doing, Rick, and Mike. I appreciate all the efforts on your company's part as well.
Well, thank you. I think, can I speak with one more thing?
You may.
I think that how was the world going to look, you know, 6 months from now or a year from now? Well, I don't know. But I feel that there's been an article in Tech Republic that came out that talked about the rise of the distribution-centric hardware. And Will that be solely the future? Well, I doubt that. But I think that that definitely is the future, at least in part, because the virtuous cycle that occurs when you have a commercial venture that's feeding back into an open source effort and helping to build on the shoulders of giants is a very good way to go. It's really going to come down to you're going to have specific hardware for specific distributions, and then you're going to have your traditional vendors that are offering their distributions. And I don't know, both may exist, but I think definitely distro-based hardware has a very bright future.
All right. Well, I didn't really expect to talk about the Kubuntu Focus until the end of the show, but that's how it worked out. So I'm glad you're both here. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
All right. So that is going to pretty much wrap it up because we're out of time, Dan. We are out of time.
We are. It's okay, though.
All right. But everybody gets the last word. Dan, last word.
Well, thanks, Rocco, as always, for hosting this great group and fostering the good discussion. Xubuntu was great. Thanks to Sean and all the other devs, and thanks for being here, Sean. And also want to thank Rick and Mike for being here. Good stuff there, too. Look forward to Budgie next week.
Yep. Joe, last word?
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Rocco. Good work. And there's 2 Joes, so I'm gonna just keep talking, Joe, because I won. Thanks, Mike, and now I'm lost. Thanks, Mike and Rick. We appreciate you being on. Will, thanks for educating us on there on the laptop, and again, Sean as well. That was really nice to have someone in here. It definitely tempers our input sometimes because we get a little picky sometimes, so it is nice to have someone in here to represent the distribution as well. Thank you for your time, and it's great to see everybody on here, and looking forward to Budgie, and great show.
Leo, last word, brother.
Ooh, Xubuntu was good. Thanks, Sean, for putting an awesome distribution together. It is rock solid. When I have to use it, I will like it. I do like it. Mike, Rick, thanks for coming on and talking about the focus. I had to come in here and defend Kubuntu a little bit. So yeah, we can all be happy about that. Thank y'all, everybody.
Daniel Stevenson, last word.
All right. Thanks everybody for having me here, and I intend to be back here next week. Thanks Sean for being here and listening to our feedback and everything about Xubuntu as it can be continuously improved. Thanks. Talking about the Kubuntu Focus, that was very enlightening about sort of like I'd seen the workflows thing, had no idea what it meant, and yeah, thanks.
Dave Jones, last word, brother.
Thanks, Rocco. Thanks, Dan, for providing a great show and being an awesome host. Thanks, Sean, for leading a great distro and for all the hard work you do on XFCE. Can't wait for 4.16 to come out. Very excited. And thanks, Mike and Rick, for all the info on Kubuntu Focus. It was a lot of good info there. Thanks.
Joshua.
So once again, thank you to Sean. Of course, we always get the gist of social distancing ourselves on Twitter. Besides that, great job again with your distro. I really hope for the best with the Kubuntu Focus. Always nice seeing you all tonight. And have a great Memorial Day or holiday, everyone. And stay safe out there.
Thomas, last word.
Well, thanks for having me on again. Enjoyed the chat about Xubuntu. Can't wait to hear what they have coming up next. great for the Kubuntu team getting their own OEM partnership. Not a lot of distros get that, and I hope that is a continuing trend, not just with Kubuntu, but with a lot of other distros out there.
Last one on that. Tony, last word.
I've downloaded a fresh copy of Xubuntu. I will give it another go. I also looked back a couple of weeks ago at what I said about Ubuntu Mate and realised I was a bit harsh on it. And so I installed it on my main machine 5 days ago, and I'm still running it.
Wow.
I managed to click on the little blue thing, and everything went blue instead of green. And I quite like it so far. So, you know, I just thought I'd mention it. Anyway, thanks for the show, Rocco. Stay safe and take care, everybody, and I look forward to next week.
Jason, last word.
Well, again, thank you guys for Rocco and Dan for putting on a great show. Thank you to all the guests that came in. It was a very informative night. We got to learn a lot about the new laptop, the Focus, and we got to learn about the everything that Sean does with his distro. It was just great information. A lot of people got to express what they wanted to add to the distro and things of that nature, and what kind of different processors and things of that nature they wanted to see in the laptops, et cetera, et cetera. So it was good, very informative, very grateful to be able to be here tonight.
Jinda, last word.
Thanks for having me, guys. And thanks for everyone who showed up. Stay safe. Take it easy.
Barbara, last word.
Okay, as always, I want to thank Rocco and Dan for everything that they've done, and thank everybody else for being here and being part of a virtual love, which is really what it is. And everyone, stay safe, stay distant from each other, and I want to see you all here next week.
Yes. Big Pod, last word.
Thank you guys for having me. And well, next week I start with internship with my school, so we'll see how it will come next week. So maybe yes, maybe no, depending on how much data sleep I will be.
You don't need any sleep, dude. You don't need any sleep.
Tiny bit I need. Tiny bit.
All right. Chicken, last word.
Hi there. I just want to say thank you all for being here, and thank you to Rocco for hosting us and using your lovely internet bandwidth to put us on the airwaves or the wire waves or whatever the internet is. And also thanks to Sean for being here. I feel like we have much more productive conversations when we have a sort of direct line of feedback. You know, like you don't have to do it, but you do. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure it definitely comes in handy for all of us here. And thank you for being so receptive. And I hope to see you guys all next week.
Colin, last word. You're
Yes,
never
thanks,
ready.
Rock and Cove.
You're never ready. Colin.
Look,
never.
This Zoom thing's got to be sorted out. I don't know where I am in this list. It drives me bonkers every week.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Rock and Co, for the platform. Yeah, thanks for Sean for turning up. It's always good to see the developers turn up and see what interesting things we have to say. Interesting chat about the Kubuntu Focus there, and looking forward to trying out Ubuntu Budgie next week. So everyone take care and have a good week. Stay safe.
Joe, last word.
Just so you know, I was the original Joe, so I guess that's what we're going to have to go by, because this is what happens when you take a month off and you come back and you don't pay attention. And as Colin said, Zoom is every which way and you can't figure out what order you're in. I might have to, I thought, well, either original Joe or I'll have to change my name 14 times, like Alan, Chicken, Chickle, whatever he goes by now these days. So anyway, but thanks a lot for a great show. I enjoyed talking to Mike and Rick and Sean. And I mean, this is really an enjoyable night, and I can't believe 2 hours went by that fast. But thanks again. I always like seeing you guys, and I hope everybody stays healthy and well, and we'll hope to see you next week. God bless.
Paul, last word.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Great show tonight. Hope to see you next week.
Vince, last word.
How awesome is it to be able to hear from the people who make stuff, people like Sean, Mike and Rick, and let's not forget Thomas and Farron's here as well.
Yep.
And who put us all together? Rocco did. Thank you.
I just hit record.
Dan, Dan, thanks for being the very, very awesome helper. Bye.
Sean, last word? You are still muted, Sean, just so you know.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So, as I was saying, thanks Rocco and Dan for putting this together and for always giving me a heads up when you're about to talk about Xubuntu so that I can come and, like somebody said, kind of temper the expectation a little bit and take feedback and, try to make some changes for every release. So I always appreciate it. And the conversation's always great.
It's always good having you here, brother. Tom, last word. We'll get back to Tom. Daniel.
Yeah, Rocco, thank you for the stream. And Dan, thanks for helping out. I always appreciate being able to come in here and learn from everybody. And to echo what Vince said, like, it's pretty amazing that we can all get together and actually talk to people that actually make really cool stuff. Like with Sean and with Theron, and then like with the guys from the Kubuntu Focus team, Mike and Rick. Like, it's just cool, and it's just cool to just sometimes sit back and listen and take it all in. So I appreciate you guys for showing up. I appreciate everybody on here, and looking forward to next week.
Scrap.
Again, it's good to see everybody here, and this is my son. I know you saw my daughter earlier. Say hi. Say hi, bud.
Hi.
There he is. So
Hello.
thanks, guys, from Ubuntu Focus and all the other devs that came up. And you know what the try before you buy thing means, Rocco. We're gonna have to do another distro challenge, but we're gonna have to install the suite.
That may happen. Who knows?
Then we'll invite the guys to come back when we have reviewed the suite.
Right. Very
Take
nice.
care, guys. Have a good night.
Farron, last word.
Well, I guess this is my debut stream then for Biddle, I guess.
So are you coming back? That's the question, dude.
Hopefully, I guess. I do have plans to.
Does it take a Baron OS distro talk to get you here?
It is late for you, though. So we'll give you that. And Rick. So.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's like, good night and don't let the Gen 2s bite.
Bill, last word.
Hey, thank you, Rocco and Dan. Sean, thank you for coming. Thank you for the continued work on Catfish. And please share with everybody on the team, and especially, I don't know his real name, is Unit 193. He does so much stuff. Really awesome what he does. Mike, your discussion and insights into the laptop stuff was really cool. And I'd really like to thank Left Hand Brewing Company for making this evening possible.
Mike, you get a last word as well, brother.
I thought I talked enough. I really appreciate being here with all of you and having the opportunity to have the floor for as long as you allowed me to. So I really appreciate that, everybody, and I hope I didn't bore anyone. And it's great being part of a community, and it's great giving back, and it's great feeding the kids. So hopefully we can do all of those things. And I want to thank, obviously, Rocco and Dan, and also I'm sorry, I have to look it up, Sean, as well, with your presentations. So that's it. I'm sorry, I'm not any more exciting than that.
It's all good, brother.
All right.
Rick, last word.
Well, you know, I mean, it's great to be back here again, Rocco. This must be the third. I think it's the third time that I've been here. It is it's like ridiculous.
It's way late, dude.
Yeah, it is way late. But you know, what makes this for me is it is the community, right? So it's great I've been involved with Kubuntu for a long time, but this whole like virtual lug setting that you've got going on here, Rocco, the community that's building here, that's what makes it exciting, right? Is that, you know, you got guys like Sean who are, you know, giving loads of time voluntarily to make stuff happen, and it's that whole people contributing a brick and then coming away with a house. That's the bit that I'm very grateful for. So for me, I'm really grateful for the platform and for you allowing me to come on here and waffle on. Thank you very much.
Peter, last word.
Sorry. As the food bank guy here, I always have to say thank you for supporting your local food banks, your pantries, support Feed America if you're in the States. I just posted a link. Just thank you for all the help during this crisis. Second thing is, controversial statement. The Peppermint team are absolutely crazy. They made me a trusted user.
What? Are you kidding?
Last Sunday.
Nice.
Yeah, they did.
Congratulations.
Very nice. Congrats.
Congrats.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy.
Welcome to the top secret area.
Congrats.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, last word.
Thanks for having me here again. It was interesting to catch what I did. Missed the beginning hour, but I did get to run Xubuntu on a virtual machine. So I'm working on some virtual machine experience. So that was fun for me. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yep. Chris, last word. First word, last word.
Alpha and Omega. So there we go. I don't really have a whole lot to say. I came in really late this week. I'm sorry, but thanks for letting me in anyway. And onward and forward.
Steve, last word.
Hey, thanks for letting us in on the last minute, Rocco. Always appreciate it. I didn't get to try Xubuntu yet, but everybody kind of knows I do like XFCE. And with that segue, I think when it finally comes out, you guys are really going to love Peppermint 11. And that's all I'll say. And
Wow.
welcome to the team.
Dropping the bomb.
Boom.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Something else real quick.
Yeah,
Like,
go ahead.
I did mean to segue this earlier, but it's like, remember what we said about Plasma being lighter?
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget that's one of the reasons that Ubuntu Studio is moving to Plasma from 2010 onwards.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep. All right. Well, that is going to wrap it up. We are out of time. Everybody's got their last word in. My last word is, again, thank you, Sean, for all of the efforts. And thank you, Mike and Rick, for both being here. I appreciate it. This past week on Linux Spotlight, I talked to Ven Stone of Linux Gamecast. And, you know, there was a lot of comments, different comments. Like, you know, not all were positive, not all were negative. But it was the first episode, I think, that was really people were torn, whether they liked it or not. So go check that out. But this week coming up, we have Leo Chavez as the guy in the Linux Spotlight. Right, Leo?
Well, hold on. I did my last word already. Yeah, that's me.
Well, he gets the to be episode 50. Can you believe we're up to episode 50 already?
Dang. I feel really privileged to have gotten that number as well.
It's ridiculous. Well, it was all random, but you got it, dude. And that will release Wednesday at 6 a.m. And that's going to wrap it up. Next week, we're going to try Ubuntu Budgie and hopefully be joined by one of the members of the team, and we'll talk about it. But until then, long live Linux.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Good morning.